I'd like to share my experiences of the life circumstances that brought me to the point of joining a monastery. And I'm Stevie Sāraṅga. I was a Hindu monk for 10 years living at an ashram on top of a hill in Scotland. And I'd like to talk about my life and the circumstances that brought me to the point of making the decision I want to go and join a monastery. And I'm going to talk around a number of themes. I've got 8 points on my pad: meditation and sports psychology, work, number 3, spirituality, not politics, 4, the battle for people's hearts and minds, 5, adventure, freedom and autonomy, 6, searching for stability, 7, community, and 8, music. So when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was a promising young athlete. But like there's so many promising young athletes, sport is something that a lot of young people get into, and it's a great hobby. Keeps kids off the street, gives them something to do, something to aim for, gives them goals in life. So myself, I was like that. I was my dad, took me along. Well, he took me along to the football team. My uncle was almost made it professional, hadn't it have been for a knee injury when he was like 16. But so my dad took me to the sports club, football club. But I didn't show enough determination. That was pointed out to me. You're not trying hard enough. So I had a conversation with my dad in the car, and I said, I don't want to do football, And anyway, so then he thought, okay, well, what am I going to do to engage my son? So to keep him, out of the bus stops, hanging around on the streets, kids. Melting bus stops with lighters, writing their name, graffitiing, what's he going to do? So he started taking me orienteering. Orienteering is like a kind of a sport where it's kind of like almost like a military army sport. You get like a map and you get a compass, and you've got to like run around a course, a set course. So there's checkpoints, flags where you've got to check in at each of the checkpoints. In between, you've got to navigate, and you've got to go as quick as you can, and it's a race. Whoever wins gets like the medal, So he started, and he himself was into fell running. He'd done the London Marathon. So I got into orienteering, and I got picked for kind of like training tours to get into the national team. When I was 15, we went to Glenmore Lodge in Scotland here, and then when I was 16, went to a place in Norway for 2 week training camp, and they were, it was always trying to get the sport. It's a kind of a small sport, and they're always trying to get themselves into the Olympic Games, and I don't think they've ever quite managed it because it's not got enough like popular backing. But there was always that, like, maybe next time around we're actually going to be at the Olympics, and so the British team are trying to get promising young athletes up there. So at one of the training camps when I was 17, we were given a lecture about sports psychology by someone who was from a university. And they talked about meditation as a because I had a coach actually. I had a number of coaches, but one of my coaches was a guy who his coach was, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Chris Brasher. You've probably heard of Roger Bannister, right? No, I heard of Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was the first person to break the 4-minute mile. So he's famous. He's like he's a really famous to kind of break that sports world. Yeah, break that barrier, which was not just a physical barrier, it was a psychological barrier for so many people. Can a human being possibly run a mile in under 4 minutes? So Roger Bannister was the first person to do that, and one of his people who he was training with, and there was a team, I think there was a team of 4 of them, and they were all working on this, trying to get to break this 4 minute mile. One of them was Chris Brasher, and anyway, he
was your tutor.
No, he was the coach of my coach. So there was kind of like a line of teacher and student. Yeah, so he was my coach, and he actually introduced me to this like these positive mental attitude books. There was a book by a guy called Napoleon Hill. He's also a famous motivational speaker. There's a whole genre of kind of self-help books, motivational books in like Waterstones and in all the big bookshops. And he introduced me also, as my coach, introduced me to that kind of genre of literature with Napoleon Hill. And I've actually, anyway, yeah, I'm just getting back into it. Recently, a friend has lent me his copy of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, which you know, they call it synchronicity. Last night I just watched a documentary about a BBC documentary about a cult that based itself on that. It's called The Lighthouse. It was on BBC, a very British cult is the name of the documentary. But yeah, so I got into meditation through sports psychology and wanting to you know, get that edge over my competitors in the field of sports. And one thing my coach said is that, you know, winning, it's all in the mind. It's all in the mind. And you know, because there's a lot of competitive sportsmen. I mean, look at the Premier League. You know, these guys are training day in, day out. They're all physically kind of, you know, incomparable. They're all strong. They're all fit. They're all fast. They've got skill. They've got ability. And quite often we see in a football game, it's about the mind, and it's about who's got the strength, who really wants to win, you know, that emotion and that extra, like above just the physical ability and the physical limitations. You know, there's this dimension to sport, which is sports psychology, and to some point, to some degree, it is a kind of a killer instinct. You know, you could say you've got to have an arrogance to assert your domination on that football field or on that tennis court and say, I am the best, you know. And to be honest, my you know, sojourn into the worlds of sport was cut short, or like I never really had that killer instinct. I was always like the nice guy that, you know, that finished last, you know. But yeah, so anyway, I found out about meditation and the positive effects, the positive benefits were being taught to us in the sports psychology lecture. And so you know, that's something that stayed with me. And then I found out about a meditation course at a local community centre. It was run by a Buddhist guy. So that's what got me into meditation, discovering, you know, this realm of the mind, and, you know, it's kind of you know, how it can take you away. I mean, the sport I was doing, of all sports, is very much about being able to control the mind and concentrate under you know, adverse conditions of competition, you know, because you're orienteering, you've got a map, and you're having to run as fast as you can, but at the same time you've got to navigate. So you've got to somehow combine the two and be able to concentrate and plot your course on the map, you know, observe the terrain and try your best to follow that course. So you know, the power to focus, and also not get distracted. This is something I think a lot of people, I think in sport and in life in general, you know, distraction, getting you know, taken off on a tangent away from whatever it is we're trying to achieve. In general, you know, this is a problem, and meditation is something even clinically proven to really help with focus. You know, it is like exercising a muscle, exercising the ability of the mind to really just focus in on just one thing and blot everything else out, and just in the same way that a muscle, by you know, you're doing some bicep curls, your muscle's getting stronger by exercising that muscle, you improve, you know. So similarly, by practicing meditation, then our ability to focus is improving, you know. And even in the you know, in all aspects of life, there's benefit to that in all dimensions of yeah. I got a friend, he was a engineer working in Glasgow, and he could do the same amount of work of all of his colleagues faster because he practiced meditation, and you know, he could get it all done and pack his bag, and he could be off home, you know, on the golf course or wherever he wanted to do to enjoy himself. So yeah, that's my little story about how I got into meditation. And next one I want to talk about is work. Work is such a huge part of our lives, and yeah, I never really I didn't really want to work for something that I didn't believe in. I mean, I'm really glad that I joined the ashram, and that's because it was something that I could believe in, you know. So I studied philosophy at university, and of all the areas of work that people go into after they've studied philosophy, the biggest one is law. A lot of people go and they do another degree in law, and I graduated. My colleagues were going on to, you know, further education or starting their careers in graduate training schemes like you know, Ernst & Young and other, you know, big kind of finance or whatever. One guy was going into publishing, but I thought I just don't want to go down that road. As much as my dad, you know, really wanted me to follow in his footsteps as a kind of like a government officer, I was like, I gave it a try actually one summer in between university years. I did a kind of like a business training scheme, working in an office, helping out with some marketing and things. But I could see it wasn't for me. But yeah, I really wanted to find a kind of a line of work that agreed with my set of values and ethics, which and I wanted to maintain that personal integrity. You know, I was like, okay, I don't want to work for a company that is exploiting people, you know, and even less than that, I don't even want to work for a company that is all about profit. I don't even want to work for a company like that, you know. It's like whatever skills, whatever abilities, whatever I've got, you know, I want to use them for something that I really believe in, you know. So after graduating, I was kind of at a loss. I couldn't see any future. I couldn't see any direction. And so I was temping, doing, you know, just treading water, just doing things just to keep my head above the water. And I was trying to give myself time give myself time to think, you know, what am I going to do, you know, what am I going to do in my life, you know. And I'd just get a temporary job doing something simple like washing up or labouring, and I would work for a few months, and I would have some time off, and I would spend my time reading, meditating, and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And eventually I found out. I met some people from a monastery, from a Hare Krishna monastery, and I started to like learn from them. And
what about your friendship with Daniel King, Chaitanya Vallabha? How did you meet him?
Well, I had a friend who was at university together, and we were at Liverpool University. He was studying ancient history and archaeology, and I was studying philosophy. And we met in the first week, and he was starting to, he found a book on his shelf, a book written by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, which he found really inspiring, especially because the reason why he said he was studying that course was because he'd read some other books, Celestine Prophecy, and a few other books that his mother had given him, and he was convinced that there was an ancient civilization which was actually superior in so many ways to the civilization that we know now, and of which we are so proud, and that which a lot of people feel and think is the pinnacle of human achievement. Right, so this is a challenge. This is a big challenge, and you know, Graham Hancock is one author who's a great proponent of these ideas, and probably my friend Daniel King, had probably read some of his books as well, as Chariot of the Gods and Fingerprint of the Gods. Some of these books. I actually myself did an extra module in Egyptology. Whilst I was on my philosophy course, because I wanted to delve into that realm and question some of the professors about some of those theories. I was thoroughly disappointed that the professors were completely unwilling to even engage in discussion of such things, which for me is like, you know, the whole academic endeavour is about convincing people on the basis of argument and evidence. And you know, in other areas of kind of challenging new theories, what we would call conspiracy theories, I see a lot of academic representatives unwilling even to enter into discussion, and rather they would just try to personally discredit the people who are proselytizing these theories, you know. But my friend, he was studying ancient history and archaeology, and after the second year, he said to me, he said, "Steve, you know, I'm going to go and join a monastery in Scotland. It's a Hare Krishna monastery." And I said to him, "Really? I mean, because he'd been going along to the meetings. There was a little temple on Bold Street back in the day, at the top of Bold Street, and he was going along to the meetings. He was giving me some of the sanctified food that had been offered to God, to Krishna, and I'd been eating that, and he was telling me about Guranga, the 15th century avatar of Lord Krishna, who was preaching around India in the 15th century, and he was telling me a little bit about it. But then it was a shock. It was still a shock when he said, you know, at the end of his second year, he said, "Steve, you know, I'm quitting my course. I really feel that I've found exactly what I'm looking for. The reason I came to study ancient history and archaeology is because I wanted to find out about this ancient, advanced civilization." But he said, you know, the professors, that they don't they don't entertain this kind of these kind of ideas.